We thought we'd start with just a few of the things we do here that are a little unusual, that may be surprising, clear the air, just get them out there, and then talk a little about why we do things that way, and then navigate maybe some of the practical, how you can manage those things with and for your student.
Yeah, so the first is you probably notice this table is kind of unusual to have in a classroom, but every day your high school students will come here, 9th through 12th grade, to discuss works of the Western tradition for 2 hours. They will discuss with themselves and with a teacher questions like, what is justice? Or what is the importance of truth? And can relationships ever be authentic? Or is there always some deception in the middle? Right? Really big questions. We expect them to participate in those questions actively. I don't lecture in my classes. None of the HL teachers do. We want the students to discuss and come to answers on their own. They will come to those answers, but we go through a lot of questions before they get there. And so participation becomes one of the most important aspects of their overall grade. We also expect our students to have a mandatory curriculum until their senior year. And this does a couple of things. The first is it helps them grow consistently in that participation aspect. If you're taking Humane Letters for 3 years in a row, you know what you need to do, right? You know what is expected of you. The rules don't change. But also it means that by the time our seniors are seniors, they've taken every other class that every other student on this campus has. Which means that when my seniors are hanging out with my juniors, hanging out with my sophomores, my freshmen, my 6th graders, all in one room, the one across, by the way, they talk to each other about what they are all experiencing, and they share that together.
Yeah, and that interconnectedness of community is one reason why our curriculum is mandatory for everyone. We also believe that that curriculum gives a certain interconnectedness of ideas, right? What you're learning in science is enriched and made more noble by what you're learning in math and in music and in Humane Letters, right? And seeing the world as this interconnected, beautiful place helps them love it as such. Because ultimately that is our goal for students, right? There are a lot of places where the goal is graduate with your degree so you can go start making money or get into whatever college. And those are good and important things, right? But what is it that feeds your heart in the darkest moments and that lasts beyond your working years? It is the love of learning for its own sake. And that filters into what we teach in the way I've mentioned. It also filters into how we teach. So we ask a lot of questions, as Ms. Valentine mentioned, right? They leave knowing some things, we hope, with some answers to those questions, right? But they're going to get there through a lot of questions because we believe it's important for them to ask those questions and to face their own humility, right? Man, maybe I'm not so good at math as I am at writing. That's good for you to be in that community and learn with your colleagues, okay? And that filters into the way, as I said, that we will grade them as well. So talking maybe a little bit about how that comes into play in the value we place on participation.
Yeah, so one of the things that we value is obviously community. We also value the individual and the individual's voice. So we work with them from 6th grade through 12th to cultivate that voice to be an authentic voice, theirs, unique, individual. We ask that they do this in 2 ways. We have 2 sort of modes of helping them cultivate that voice that they can use around the seminar table or outside these gates. Sense of wonder and depth of inquiry, right? And that sounds like very sort of buzzwordy, but what we ask them to do is we ask them to look around them and genuinely value the beauty that they see, the goodness that they have experienced, and the truth that they are coming to. That can be with their classmates, that can be in the subject, that can be outside in the world as a whole, in the courtyard, in a beautiful throw that they did in football, right? Like anywhere that they can experience it, we want them to have that wonder and to cultivate it. We also want them to do it in a way that leads them to understand that they can follow their own voice and their own thoughts through a progression. So depth of inquiry is, yes, question-based, but also when that question hits the pavement, when the morality meets the practicality, what do they actually do? How are they as an integrated human? And so we help them with this in classes, in sports, in our extracurricular enrichments, right? We work with our students one-on-one and in groups to listen to each other, to talk to each other, and to cultivate their own authentic voice and know how to use it. That sometimes means for our really loud students, we have to be like, hey man, a little quieter so that person next to you can talk. And for our shyer students that we know have a lot to say but are struggling to say it, hey, you have great questions. Ask a question once a day. Just start with that and let's build on that. Right? We work with them one-on-one. Participation is 30% of their grade. I know that's a big number, but we also know your students and we know what active wonder looks like in your students, and we know what questions really bug them and that they carry from class to class with them. So that 30% is very individualized based on the student.
Taking all of this from the realm of ideas maybe into some practicality here, this manifests itself in a number of ways here at GP. So one thing that often is surprising to new parents is that the way that we distribute grades to our students. We do not publish our grades online because we do not want our students accessing their grades outside of the context we have mentioned. The context of what is your character like in class? Are you asking questions? Are you listening? Are you alive with love for a subject, right? Rather, we give them their grades only in that conversation, that dialogue. So if a student asks me, Mr. Yost, how am I doing in music? I say, well, have you been practicing? Have you been respectfully listening to your peers in class? Have you been asking questions? Have you been doing your homework, right? And after we have that conversation and they can see themselves as this holistic, integrated person, then I'll tell them, this is your letter grade, right? The same then goes if you want to support your student by knowing their grade, right? We acknowledge that is important. You can reach out to your teachers at any time with an email that we'll respond to within 24 hours and invite you into that conversation. A couple proactive things that we do that you might see in your inbox next year. Halfway through each quarter, we do send deficiency notices, which is an indication of if your student has a grade lower than a C-, we think you ought to know that and have a heads up so you can partner with us to support your student. We will also send you a narrative evaluation at the end of each quarter in which we invite you into that conversation of this is where we saw strengths and growth in your student. This is how they became lovers of music or art or whatever it is, whatever the subject is, and you can know your student in that same way as well. Some of the other just little practical things that will also help you support your students. Our homework expectation is about 15 to 20 minutes a night in the middle school per class and about 20 minutes per night in the high school. So if your student is experiencing more than 2 hours of homework a night, we encourage you to reach out to us because we want to talk with you about, that's excessive for a young soul. How can we help that student accomplish that more efficiently, things of that sort. One of the other great things you can do to stay involved is just to ask your students what they're learning. Right? Mm-hmm. Many of them are tempted to forget that between 3 o'clock and whenever you see them. And just that little reminder helps them foster that love. Oh yeah, I did love what we did in science today. Right? Miss Valentine was my teacher, so of course I loved it.
Yeah, we crush cans.
Of course.
It's cool.
But helping them build that habit of taking their own responsibility to remember what they're learning, to ask questions, to use their planner, right, is one that 6th graders will sometimes struggle with. We do recognize, though, that there are perhaps even more serious concerns you may have. So, Ms. Valentine, maybe we'll close this off with some more.
So every teacher here has tutoring hours. So no matter what subject, right, your student can drop in either before school, in the middle of the day during our lyceum and lunch periods, or after school, and work with a teacher on their subject that they are struggling with. Even if they're not struggling, even if they have just questions, encourage them to go. I love talking to my students about whatever they have questions about, even if it's not even a subject I teach. I'm like, yeah, that's a great question. Let's talk about it. So tutoring is a great opportunity for your student to really practice using their voice, but also to get the help that they need. You can encourage your student to go. There are tutoring schedules everywhere. Sometimes teachers will even say, you know what, I'm going to give you a little more one-on-one support. Come to this special time. The teacher will reach out to you because we love your students and we want to help them. In addition to that, we have all sorts of opportunities, like we have peer tutoring for Latin. Latin is often a sticking point for a lot of younger students. They struggle with it for the first couple weeks, but we have so many supports. We have juniors that are so happy to tutor and to help. We have enrichments if your student really loves a particular subject. If they want a seminar just all the time, we have literature enrichments. We have Latin clubs. We have places where they can adapt or apply the things that they're learning in class at a much more advanced level. You saw our robot out there on the table. Robotics Club did great this year. So if you notice that your student is struggling, or if you notice that your student is really excited about something, have them come to a teacher or reach out to a teacher. Email us and let us know, like, hey, my student really loved that science lesson. Is there any way that they can get involved in like a science enrichment? It's like, yeah, we have 3. Come talk. Like, we have environmental studies, we have robotics, come talk to us. But let us know. We want to know how we can help your student become the best version of themselves, not only as a student, but also as a human.